The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room ever built by any species in the known galaxy. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Lights floated in the air like captured stars. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in curved rows that circled a single platform in the center. On that platform stood a human woman named Yuna. She was small compared to most aliens in the room. The Tellurians towered above her with their gray skin and 4 arms. The Orani watched with their large black eyes that never seemed to blink. Other species filled the seats, each one different, each one waiting for her to speak. Yuna had been Earth's ambassador for 15 years. She had learned their languages. She had studied their customs. She had believed, truly believed, that humanity had found its place among the stars. Today, she learned how wrong she was. "Counselors," she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "I stand before you to ask one simple question. Why?" High Counselor Vorn shifted in his seat at the top of the chamber. He was Tellurian, ancient and powerful. His gray face showed no emotion as he looked down at the small human woman. "The resolution has been explained," Vorn said. "Humanity poses a risk to galactic stability. Your species breeds too quickly. You expand too fast. You refuse to follow genetic standardization protocols. The Council has decided that humans must be contained within their original system." Yuna shook her head slowly. "Contained? You mean exiled? You mean removed from every station, every colony, every world we have helped build for the past 200 years? If you wish to use those words, yes." Yuna looked around the chamber. She saw faces she had known for years, delegates she had shared meals with, officials whose children had played with human children on station parks. None of them would meet her eyes. "Do you remember the Orani plague?" Yuna asked quietly. 17 years ago. A disease that killed within hours. No cure. No treatment. The Orani worlds were dying. She pointed to the section where Orani delegates sat. 60,000 humans volunteered to deliver medicine to quarantine zones. They knew the risk. They went anyway. 60,000 of our people died so that Orani children could live. The Orani delegates looked away. "Do you remember the Void Swarm?" Yuna continued. 50 years ago. An enemy from beyond known space. They consumed everything. Every species in this room was ready to surrender. Every species. Except one. Her voice grew stronger. 4 million human soldiers died holding the line. 4 million. We bought you time to build defenses. We bled so that you could survive. And when it was over, when the swarm was pushed back, the official history said it was a coalition effort. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Coalition. We were 70% of that coalition. We lost more people in that war than some of your species have in their entire population, and you wrote us out of the story. High Counselor Vorn raised one of his 4 hands. These sacrifices are acknowledged, but they do not change the fundamental concern. Humanity is unpredictable. Your emotions make you dangerous. You do not think like other species. "No," Yuna agreed. "We do not. When we see someone suffering, we help them. When we see injustice, we fight it. When we see a child crying, we comfort them. You call this dangerous. We call it being alive." The chamber was silent. Yuna reached up and removed the diplomatic insignia from her collar. The small golden pin had been her pride for 15 years. She held it in her palm and looked at it one last time. "I have given my life to this council," she said softly. "I believed we were building something together, a future where all species could stand as equals. I was wrong." She placed the pin on the podium and stepped back. "Humanity will respect the council's decision. We will leave. Every ship, every station, every man, woman, and child. We will take nothing that is not ours, but we will leave nothing behind either." She turned to walk away, then stopped. "But remember this moment, counselors. Remember the day you pushed away the only species that ever truly cared about you, because the universe is cold and dark, and those who light candles in the darkness are rare. You have just blown out your only light." The vote was called after she left, 11-1. Only Delegate Mira of the Orani voted against the resolution. Her single voice meant nothing against the tide of fear. Far above the station, aboard the human flagship Eternal Dawn, Admiral Tejo received the news. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had commanded fleets in 3 wars. He had watched friends die in battles that most species did not even know had been fought. He read the message twice, then set down the datapad. "Sir?" His aide, a young officer named Woojin, stepped forward. "What are our orders?" Tejo looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there were human colonies, human stations, human families who had made their homes among alien worlds. All of them would now have to leave. "Begin the withdrawal," he said quietly. "Every sector, every system. Bring our people home. And the defensive installations, the medical stations, the infrastructure we built, take what is ours. Power down the rest. Leave nothing running." Woojin hesitated. "Sir, if we shut down those systems, their networks will collapse. They depend on our technology for everything from communication to food production." Tejo turned to face him. His eyes were sad but firm. "They made their choice, Captain. They decided they did not want us. We will not force ourselves on those who do not wish our presence. That is not who we are. And if they change their minds," the Admiral was quiet for a long moment, "then they will learn what we have always known, that some doors, once closed, cannot be easily opened again." Back in the assembly hall, the delegates were already leaving. The historic vote was over. The human problem had been solved. There was relief on many faces, satisfaction on others. Only Elder Bros remained in his seat. He was the oldest being in the council, a creature of a species so ancient that no one remembered their original name. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched civilizations bloom and wither, and he had watched humans. A young Tellurian aide approached him. "Elder, the session is over. Is there something wrong?" Bros stared at the empty platform where Yuna had stood. His ancient eyes were troubled. "Fools," he whispered. "They have no idea what they have just done. No idea at all." The aide frowned. "Surely this is good news. The human threat has been neutralized." Bros laughed, a dry and terrible sound. "Threat, child? Humanity was never our threat. They were our shield. They were the only species foolish enough to stand between the darkness and everyone else." He slowly rose from his seat, "And we just sent them away." He walked out of the chamber, leaving the aide alone with questions that would not be answered for years. Outside, the first human ships were already powering up their engines. The exodus had begun. 3 months had passed since the vote. And the humans were leaving exactly as they had promised. Quietly, completely, without anger or violence. This made the council more nervous than any war ever had. Captain Woojin stood in the main corridor of Frontier Medical Station 7. The station had served 43 different species for over 80 years. Human doctors had treated millions of patients here. Human engineers had kept the air flowing and the lights burning. Now the lights were going dark, one section at a time. "How many more patients?" Woojin asked. Dr. Hana checked her datapad. She was a small woman with tired eyes and gentle hands. She had worked on this station for 20 years. She had delivered babies of 12 different species. She had held the hands of dying beings who had no one else. "The last transport left an hour ago," she said. "We transferred everyone to council facilities. They have doctors. They will manage." Woojin heard the doubt in her voice. "Will they?" Hana did not answer. Instead, she walked to the main computer terminal and began the shutdown sequence. Screens flickered and died. Machines hummed into silence. Decades of medical research, treatment protocols, and patient histories were erased in moments. "We could leave the database," Woojin suggested. "The information could help them." The council said they do not want our help. Hana's voice was flat. "We are respecting their wishes." A small sound made them both turn. An Orani child stood in the doorway, maybe 6 years old by human standards. Her large black eyes were wet with tears. Behind her, an Orani nurse rushed forward to grab her hand. "I am sorry," the nurse said quickly. "She got away from me. She wanted to say goodbye to the soft ones." Soft ones. It was what Orani children called humans, because human skin was smooth compared to Orani scales. Hana knelt down so she was at the child's eye level. "Hello, little one. What is your name?" "Kiva," the child whispered. "Why are you leaving? Did we do something wrong?" Hana felt her heart break, but she kept her face calm. "No, sweet child. You did nothing wrong. We are leaving because we were asked to, but I do not want you to go. You gave me medicine when I was sick. You sang songs to me. I remember." Hana touched the child's face gently. "You be brave now, Kiva, and remember that somewhere out there, among the stars, there are soft ones who love you very much." The nurse pulled the child away, apologizing again. Woojin and Hana watched them disappear down the corridor. "This is the part I hate," Hana said quietly. "Not the leaving. The children. They do not understand politics. They only know that their friends are going away." Woojin put a hand on her shoulder. "We need to go. The transport is waiting." They walked through empty halls that had once been full of life. Past rooms where human nurses had worked double shifts during outbreaks. Past laboratories where human scientists had developed cures for diseases that had no names. Past cafeterias where humans and aliens had shared meals and stories and laughter. All empty now. All silent. Across council space, the same scene repeated itself thousands of times. Humans packed their belongings. Humans said goodbye to neighbors who suddenly could not look them in the eye. Humans boarded ships and watched alien worlds shrink in the viewports. And as they left, things began to break. The Tellurian agricultural minister was the first to notice. Food production on 17 colony worlds dropped by 40% in a single week. The automated systems that managed planting and harvesting had stopped working. "Get the maintenance teams," he ordered. "Sir." His aide replied nervously. The maintenance teams were human. The minister stared at him. "Then get other teams. Surely someone else knows how these systems work." They searched for 3 days. They found nothing. The humans had built the agricultural networks 50 years ago. They had maintained them, improved them, and kept them running without complaint. No one else had ever needed to learn how they worked. The communication relays were next. The ones that connected distant colonies, that allowed instant messaging across light years, that made the galactic economy possible. Human engineers had designed them. Human technicians had kept them functioning. Within 2 months of the human departure, 30% of council space lost reliable communication. Then came the defense grid. General Sung Ki stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching his crew dismantle the early warning satellites along the border. These satellites could detect threats from thousands of light years away. They had given the Council decades of advance warning against enemies. A Tellurian officer from a nearby station sent an angry transmission. "What are you doing? Those satellites protect us all." Sung Ki's face remained calm. These satellites were built by human engineers, paid for by human resources, and maintained by human crews. They belong to us. "You cannot take them. You will leave us blind." "That was your council's decision, not ours." Sung Ki ended the transmission. His second officer, a young woman named Jia, stood beside him. "Sir, without these satellites, they will have no warning if something comes from deep space." "I know. The void swarm could return." "I know." Jia hesitated. "Do we not have a duty to protect them anyway, even if they do not want us?" Sung Ki was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. 20 years ago, I commanded a ship at the Battle of Keth's Nebula. We held the line against void swarm raiders for 16 hours. 70% of my crew died. Humans, all of them. He turned to face her. "When we returned to council space, do you know what the Tellurian news services said about us?" Jia shook her head. "They said we were reckless, aggressive. They questioned why humans were so eager to throw ourselves into battle. They wondered if our violent nature made us unsuitable for civilized society." His jaw tightened. "My people died protecting them, and they used it as evidence that we were dangerous." He looked back at the satellites being loaded onto transport ships. "We gave them everything. Our technology, our medicine, our lives, and they decided we were a threat. So now we leave. We take what is ours, and we let them face the universe on their own." The last satellite went dark. The border, once protected by a web of human technology, was now empty space. Back on Celestia Prime, High Counselor Vorn held emergency meetings every day. Reports flooded in from across council space. Food shortages, communication failures, economic collapse. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were falling apart. Surely the humans left documentation, Vorn demanded. Technical manuals, training materials. Something. His aides searched. They found nothing. The humans had taken everything. This is revenge, Vorn growled. They are punishing us. Elder Bros shook his head slowly. No, this is exactly what they promised. They took what was theirs. They left what was ours. The problem is that we never realized how much was theirs. Delegate Mira spoke up from her seat. I warned you. I voted against the resolution. I told you that we did not understand how deeply humanity was connected to our systems. What do you suggest? Vorn snapped. That we beg them to return? I suggest we prepare for what comes next. Mira's voice was grim. Because without human technology, without human soldiers, without human aid, we are weaker than we have been in centuries, and the universe does not care about our pride. On the edge of human space, the last convoy of ships crossed the border. Ambassador Yuna stood at a viewport on the transport vessel, watching council space disappear behind them. Wujin joined her. We are clear. The withdrawal is complete. Yuna nodded slowly. 200 years. That is how long we tried to belong. We built. We healed. We protected. We did everything right. And it was not enough. No. She turned away from the viewport. It was never going to be enough. They were always afraid of us. We just refused to see it. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, and council space vanished in a flash of light. Behind them, the border went dark. For the first time in 2 centuries, humanity was alone among the stars, and for the first time in 2 centuries, the council was truly on its own. 1 year after the humans left, the darkness came back. The first reports arrived at Celestia Prime in the middle of the night. A colony on the outer rim had gone silent. No communication. No distress signal. Just silence. Grand Admiral Keth sent a patrol fleet to investigate. What they found made them wish they had never gone. The colony was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Every building, every vehicle, every person had been consumed. Only bare rock remained, stripped of all organic matter, and carved into that rock, in marks that seemed to burn with cold fire, was a symbol that every species in the galaxy recognized. The Void Swarm had returned. Keth stood before the council, his normally proud face gray with fear. He was the supreme military commander of all council forces. He had won dozens of battles against pirates and rebels. But he had never faced the swarm. The humans had always handled that. Our early warning systems are gone, he reported. The satellites that would have detected this incursion were removed during the human withdrawal. We had no warning. We still do not know how many swarm ships have entered our space. High Counselor Vorn leaned forward. What are our options? I have mobilized the 3rd and 5th fleets. We will establish a defensive line at the Keth Nebula. Elder Bros made a sound that might have been a laugh. The Keth Nebula, the same place where humans lost 70% of their forces to buy us time. Tell me, Admiral, do you have humans to die for you this time? Keth's jaw tightened. We will use the same tactics that won the last war. No, you will not. Bros rose from his seat, ancient joints creaking. Because you do not know the tactics that won the last war. You know the official history. Allow me to tell you the truth. He pressed a button, and old footage appeared on the main screen. Ships in battle. Explosions. Death. This is the actual record of the Battle of Keth's Nebula, Bros said. Watch the human ships. The council watched. They saw human vessels doing impossible things, flying into the heart of swarm formations, ramming enemy ships when weapons failed, crews staying at their posts even as their ships burned around them. The humans developed these tactics through trial and error, Bros continued. They lost millions of soldiers learning what worked against the swarm. They were willing to die in ways that no other species would accept. And when the war was won, we rewrote history to pretend it was a shared victory. He turned off the footage. The humans took their tactical knowledge with them. Everything we think we know about fighting the swarm is a lie we told ourselves. The room was silent. Delegate Mira spoke quietly. I have found other records. Hidden ones. The humans were fighting the swarm for us in ways we never knew. She activated her own display. Data scrolled across the screen. 20 years ago, a swarm scout force entered the outer systems. Human ships destroyed it before anyone else knew it was there. 15 years ago, another incursion. Same result. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, again and again. Humans detected threats and eliminated them without ever asking for thanks. She looked around the chamber. We exiled the only species that was actually protecting us, and we did not even know they were doing it. The first real battle came 3 weeks later. Grand Admiral Keth deployed his forces exactly as the old textbooks suggested. Formation defense. Overlapping fire zones. Methodical engagement. The swarm tore through his fleet like it was made of paper. Keth watched from his command ship as vessel after vessel disappeared. His tactics were useless. His weapons were too slow. His crews panicked and broke formation. Fall back, he ordered. All ships, fall back. They ran. The Great Council fleet, pride of 12 species, ran from an enemy they could not understand. Behind them, 3 colony worlds died. On Orani Prime, a different disaster was unfolding. The coughing started in the eastern cities. At first, doctors thought it was a minor illness, but it spread fast, too fast. Within days, hospitals were overwhelmed. Dr. Nira, the chief medical officer of the Planetary Health Service, worked without sleep for a week. She ran tests. She analyzed samples, and when she finally understood what she was seeing, she felt her blood turn cold. This is the green fever, she told her staff. The same disease that almost destroyed us 20 years ago. But we cured that, one of her assistants said. The humans helped us develop a treatment. The humans developed the treatment. We never learned how to make it ourselves. We relied on their medical stations to produce the medicine. Nira's voice was hollow. Those stations are dark now. The medicine is gone. She contacted the council, begging for help. But the council had no help to give. Human medical knowledge had not been shared. Human treatments had not been documented. Everything had been kept in human hands because no other species had wanted to learn. The plague spread to 5 worlds before it was contained. Millions died. Millions more were saved only because some Orani scientists worked day and night to recreate, from scratch, what humans had given them freely, on the Tellurian homeworld. The food crisis reached breaking point. The agricultural systems had never been fully repaired. Crops failed. Livestock died. Rationing was implemented, but it was not enough. For the first time in 3 centuries, Tellurians knew hunger. Vorn addressed the population, promising that solutions were coming, but everyone could see the truth in his eyes. He had no solutions. He had never needed solutions before. The humans had always provided them. In the depths of his private chamber, Vorn drafted a message to the human government. He wrote it himself, without aides, without advisors. His pride fought against every word. We request technical assistance. He wrote, our systems require maintenance expertise that is currently unavailable. We are prepared to offer fair compensation for qualified personnel. He read the message back to himself. It did not say sorry. It did not admit mistake. It still treated humans as service providers, not equals. He sent it anyway. The response came 2 days later. It was from Admiral Tejo himself, and it contained only 2 sentences. The council voted. We respected that vote. We expect the council to respect it as well. Vorn read it 7 times. Each time, he hoped to find something different. A hint of negotiation. A door left open. There was nothing. Elder Bros found him staring at the message. They refused, Vorn said. After everything we have given them over the centuries, they refused. Bros sat down heavily. What exactly did we give them, Vorn? Think carefully. Vorn opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. What had the council given humanity? Permission to exist in council space. Permission to trade. Permission to serve. Always permission, never partnership. We let them participate in our civilization, Vorn said finally. We accepted them. No. Bros shook his head. We tolerated them. We used them. And when we decided we did not need them anymore, we threw them away. He looked at the message on Vorn's screen. Did you expect them to come running back when we called? After what we did? For the first time in his long career, Vorn had no answer. Bros stood to leave, but paused at the door. I will tell you something I have never told anyone, he said. When I was young, before I joined the council, I met a human. A woman named Sora. She served on a relief vessel during the border conflicts. His ancient eyes grew distant. She worked 18 hours a day treating Tellurian wounded. Our people, not her people. She never asked for payment. She never asked for recognition. When I asked her why she helped beings who looked down on her kind, she smiled. He looked at Vorn. Do you know what she said? She said, because you needed help. That is enough. That was enough for her. Needing help was enough. He walked out, leaving Vorn alone with his thoughts. In her office on Celestia Prime, Delegate Mira stared out at the stars. Somewhere beyond those stars, humanity was building a new future. Without the council, without the species who had rejected them, she wondered if they ever thought about the ones they left behind. The children in plague wards, the families in food lines, the soldiers dying against an enemy they could not defeat. She wondered if they cared. And deep down, in a place she did not want to examine too closely, she knew the answer. Of course they cared. That was the worst part. They cared. And they had left anyway. Because caring was not enough when the ones you cared about did not care back. 3 years after the departure, Delegate Mira boarded a small transport ship and crossed into human space. She went alone. No guards, no aides, no diplomatic convoy. High Counselor Vorn had been removed from power 6 months ago, and she now led what remained of the Galactic Council. The title felt like a cruel joke. There was so little left to lead. The Void Swarm had taken a third of Council territory. Plagues had swept through Orani worlds. Tellurian colonies were starving. The great alliances that had held the galaxy together for millennia were fracturing, with species blaming each other for the human exile. Mira was the only one willing to admit the truth. They had done this to themselves. The human border was nothing like she expected. In council space, borders were marked with military stations and patrol fleets. Here, there were only civilian ships moving freely, cargo vessels carrying goods, passenger transports ferrying families. No one stopped her. No one demanded identification. A human traffic controller simply asked where she wanted to go and provided navigation coordinates to the nearest human world. She had expected to find humans struggling, building shelters from scraps, fighting to survive in their isolated corner of the galaxy. Instead, she found paradise. The first world she visited was called New Busan. It floated in the atmosphere of a gas giant, a city of gleaming towers and green parks suspended in the clouds. Children played in open spaces. Artists created sculptures that moved with the wind. Engineers worked on projects that seemed impossible. Mira walked through streets where humans laughed and talked and lived without fear. They looked at her with curiosity but not hostility. Some even smiled and waved. Welcome to New Busan, a young man said. His name was Dae-sung, and he worked at the visitor center. Is this your first time in the Confederation? Mira could not find words. This is. How did you build all this? Dae-sung smiled. 3 years of freedom. When you do not have to follow council regulations, you can move fast. This city did not exist 18 months ago. 18 months? Human determination is a powerful thing. He gestured at the skyline. Would you like a tour? Mira spent a week traveling through human space. She saw things that should have been impossible. Generation ships being constructed for journeys to distant galaxies, terraforming projects that transformed dead rocks into living worlds, medical facilities that would have seemed like magic to council scientists, free from the restrictions that the council had placed on them. Humans had exploded outward. Their technology advanced at a pace that made Mira dizzy. Their population grew. Their culture thrived. They had not just survived. They had become something greater than they had ever been under council rule. On her 8th day, Mira arrived at the capital world, New Seoul. There, in a simple government building that was smaller than most council meeting rooms, she met Ambassador Yuna. Yuna had changed. Her hair was gray now, and lines marked her face, but her eyes were peaceful in a way Mira had never seen before. She was no longer fighting for recognition. She no longer had to prove humanity's worth. "Delegate Mira," Yuna said, gesturing to a chair. "I wondered when someone would come." Mira sat heavily. "You knew we would come. We knew the swarm would return. We knew you could not fight them alone. It was only a matter of time." Yuna poured tea from a simple pot. "Tell me about the war." Mira told her everything. The battles lost. The worlds consumed. The millions dead. She told her about the plagues and the famines and the collapse of systems that had worked for centuries. She told her about the fear that now gripped every species in council space. When she finished, Yuna was quiet for a long moment. "You want us to come back?" Yuna said. It was not a question. "Yes." Mira's voice broke. "Please. I know we have no right to ask. I know what we did to you. But the swarm will kill everyone. Children are dying in plague wards. Families are starving. Please, Yuna. Please." Yuna looked out the window at the city beyond. Humans walked the streets, free and happy and safe. "Do you know what happened after we left?" she asked softly. "The first few months. I mean, before you started having problems." Mira shook her head. "Nothing. Silence. Not one species sent a message asking how we were doing. Not one delegate expressed concern for the human children who had been torn from their homes. You were relieved we were gone, and you did not care what happened to us after." She turned back to Mira. "We built all of this, everything you have seen, in 3 years. We could have built it centuries ago. But we were too busy helping everyone else. We were too busy being useful so that maybe, someday, you would see us as equals." Her voice grew heavy. "When the Orani plague struck, humans volunteered by the thousands. 60,000 of our people died bringing medicine to those worlds. The council called us reckless." She counted on her fingers. "When the Void Swarm first came, we lost 4 million soldiers defending species who would not even share a meal with us. The council called us aggressive. We rebuilt Tellurian colonies after earthquakes. We designed Keldari ships. We taught Morvian children. We gave everything, counselor. Everything." She leaned forward. "And we were told we were not wanted." Mira wept. She did not try to hide it. She did not try to argue. There was nothing to argue. "Is there nothing?" she whispered. "Nothing at all?" The door opened, and Admiral Taeho walked in. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with years of difficult decisions, but his eyes still held that strange fire that burned in all humans, the fire that made them fight when others surrendered, the fire that made them help when others walked away. He sat down across from Mira and studied her face. "We will send humanitarian aid," he said finally. "Food, medicine, shelter. No human will watch children starve, regardless of what their parents did to us." Hope sparked in Mira's chest. "And soldiers? Ships? The swarm is still out there." "No." Taeho's voice was firm. "Our soldiers belong to us now. Our ships belong to us. Our futures belong to us. We will not send our people to die for those who threw us away. But millions will die without your help. Millions died for you before. You wrote us out of your history books." Taeho's face was sad but resolved. "We are not being cruel, counselor. We are being honest. You rejected us. You have to live with the consequences of that rejection." Mira lowered her head. "I voted against the resolution. I was the only one. I know." Taeho's voice softened slightly. "That is why I am speaking to you at all. That is why we will send aid instead of nothing, because one person, at least, saw us as people." He stood and walked to the window. "We still care about you. All of you. That is the curse of being human. We cannot stop caring, no matter how much pain it causes us. But caring does not mean sacrificing ourselves for those who see us as tools." He turned back to face her. "Go home, Delegate Mira. Tell your council that humanity will help where we can. We will send supplies. We will accept refugees. We will not let innocents suffer for their leaders' sins. But the war is yours. You made that choice when you pushed us away. Mira stood on shaking legs. Will you ever forgive us? Tejo was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. Forgiveness is not something we struggle with. Humans have always been good at forgiving. But trust must be earned. And you have done nothing to earn it. He walked her to the door. Survive the war, counselor. Rebuild your worlds. Treat your people well. And maybe, in 50 years or 100, we can try again. But this time, it will be as equals, not as servants begging for a place at the table. Mira returned to council space with ships full of food and medicine. It was more than she had hoped for. It was less than they needed. And as her transport crossed the border back into the darkness, she understood something that the council had never understood. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their soldiers. It had been their heart, their stubborn, foolish, beautiful heart that refused to stop caring even when caring cost them everything. The council had feared that heart. They had tried to contain it, and now they were paying the price. 10 years had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy had changed forever. The void swarm had been stopped. It had taken everything the council had left. But they had stopped it. New tactics were developed through painful trial and error. New weapons were built by scientists who worked until they collapsed. New heroes emerged from species that had forgotten what heroism meant. But the cost was beyond measure. Of the 12 species that had once formed the Galactic Council, 3 were extinct. Their worlds were empty. Their languages were dead. Their children had been consumed by darkness. The Tellurians had lost half their population. The Orani had lost 2/3. The great halls of Celestia Prime, once filled with thousands of delegates, now echoed with the footsteps of a few hundred survivors. On the anniversary of the exile vote, a ceremony was held in the Grand Assembly Hall. Delegate Mira, now called First Counselor Mira, stood before the gathered representatives. She was old now, her scales faded, and her movements slow. But her eyes were clear, and her voice was strong. 10 years ago, she began. In this very hall, we voted to exile humanity from council space. 11 species voted yes. I alone voted no. I thought I was being brave. I was wrong. I was simply the only one who was not afraid. She looked around the chamber. So many empty seats. So many voices silenced forever. We told ourselves that humans were dangerous, too emotional, too unpredictable. We said they expanded too fast and bred too quickly. We made lists of their faults and used those lists to justify our fear. She paused, gathering herself. But the truth was simpler. We were afraid of them because they were better than us. Not smarter, not stronger, better. They helped without asking for reward. They sacrificed without expecting recognition. They cared about strangers as if they were family. And we could not understand that kind of goodness, so we called it dangerous. Behind her, a curtain fell away to reveal a memorial. It was carved from stone brought from Earth itself, traded for at great cost. The sculpture showed a human hand reaching out, and alien hands pulling away. At the base, words were carved in every language of the council. They asked only to belong. We answered with fear. Elder Bros rose from his seat. He was the oldest living being in the galaxy now. Most of his generation had died in the war. He had survived only because he was too stubborn to do otherwise. I would like to say something, he announced. Mira nodded and stepped aside. Bros moved slowly to the podium. His body was failing, but his mind remained sharp. He looked at the young delegates who filled the seats that their parents had once occupied. You were not there when the vote was taken, he said. You did not choose to exile humanity, but you inherit the consequences of that choice. As every generation inherits the sins of those who came before. He gestured at the memorial. I want to tell you a story about a human I once knew. The chamber fell silent. Her name was Sora. I met her 70 years ago, during the border conflicts. She was a medic on a relief ship, a young woman, barely grown, who had volunteered to fly into a war zone to help wounded Tellurians. Not humans. Tellurians. His ancient eyes grew distant. I asked her why she did it. Why she risked her life for people who were not her kind. Do you know what she said? The delegates leaned forward. She smiled at me. Such a simple smile. And she said, "Because you needed help. That is enough." Bros let the words hang in the air. That is enough. Not because you will reward me. Not because you will remember my name. Just because you needed help. In all my centuries of life, I have never heard a more beautiful sentence. He turned to face the memorial. We had 10 million Soras. 10 million humans who thought that helping was its own reward. Who saw suffering and could not look away. Who would rather die than abandon those in need. His voice cracked. And we sent them away. Because we were afraid of how good they were. Far away, on a colony world at the edge of human space, Admiral Tejo sat on the porch of a small house. He had retired from the military 5 years ago. His wars were over. His duty was done. Around him, children played in the afternoon sun. Human children. Mostly. But there were others too. Orani orphans from the war. Tellurian refugees who had fled the famines. Keldari youngsters, whose parents had died in the plague. Humanity had opened its borders to those fleeing the collapse. They did not ask what species the refugees were. They did not demand payment or loyalty. They simply saw people in need and helped, because that is what humans did. Dr. Hana walked out of the house and sat beside him. Her hair was white now, and her hands were wrinkled, but they were still the hands of a healer. "The ceremony is starting," she said, nodding toward a screen that showed the broadcast from Celestia Prime. "The council is dedicating a memorial to us." Tejo watched for a moment. He saw Mira speaking. He saw Bros tell his story. He saw the monument with its reaching hand. "A memorial," he said softly. 10 years too late. Hana reached over and took his hand. Does it help? Seeing them admit they were wrong, Tejo thought about it. About the 4 million who died fighting the swarm. About the 60,000 who died carrying medicine to plague worlds. About the countless others who gave their lives for species that never thanked them. "No," he said finally. "It does not help. But it is not about us anymore. It is about them. About whether they can become something better than they were." A young aide approached. Her name was Su Min, and she managed Tejo's schedule now that he was retired. "Sir," she said, "First Counselor Mira is requesting a call. She wants to thank you personally for the refugee assistance." Tejo sighed. "Tell her I am unavailable. She said you would say that. She also said to tell you that she finally understands what Sora meant." Tejo went still. He had never told anyone about Sora except his closest friends. But Mira had met Bros. Bros had told the story. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, old joints protesting. "I will take the call." Hana smiled. "Going soft in your old age? Going human," he said. Which is the same thing. The call lasted an hour. Mira did not ask for soldiers or ships. She did not beg for technology. She simply talked. About the mistakes the council had made. About the lessons they were learning. About the world she hoped to build for the children who would inherit the galaxy. When it was over, Tejo sat alone for a while, watching the sunset. Hana found him there an hour later. What did she want? To apologize, to explain, to thank us. He shook his head slowly. They still do not fully understand. They think this is about forgiveness. About making peace with the past. What is it about? The future. He looked at the children playing in the yard. Human and alien together, chasing each other, laughing. That is what it was always about. Not what they did to us. Not what we lost. But what kind of galaxy we want to leave behind. He stood and walked toward the children. An Orani girl ran up to him, tugging at his hand. "Admiral. Admiral. Come play with us." He smiled down at her. "I am too old to play." "No, you are not. Humans are never too old. That is what you always say." He laughed, a sound that surprised even him. "I suppose I did say that." He let the child lead him into the yard, where a dozen young ones of 3 different species were playing a game whose rules seemed to change every minute. Hana watched from the porch, tears in her eyes. This was what humanity had always been. Not the ships or the soldiers or the technology. This The willingness to love those who were different. The refusal to give up on anyone. The stubborn, beautiful belief that every life had value. The Council had feared this. They had tried to contain it, and now, slowly, painfully, they were learning that this was what could have saved them all along. At the border between human space and Council space, something was changing. The darkness that had marked the divide for 10 years was beginning to glow, not with warships, with hospital ships, relief convoys, refugee transports. Humanity was not returning as conquerors. They were returning as what they had always been, helpers, healers, the ones who lit candles in the darkness, and this time, the galaxy was ready to let them shine. As the first human aid ship crossed into Council space, its captain received a transmission from Celestia Prime. It was a simple message, broadcast on all frequencies, in every language. "Welcome home." The captain, a young woman named Yuri, read the message 3 times. Then she looked at her crew, humans and aliens working side by side. "You heard them," she said. "We have work to do." The ship moved forward, into the wounded galaxy, carrying medicine and food and hope. Behind them, more ships followed. Thousands of them. An endless stream of light, flowing from human space into the darkness, not because anyone had earned it, because there were people who needed help, and for humanity, that had always been enough.